Hello, this is Connor Stoops and welcome back to another Lumi Legacy HTUC video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Obelost. Obelost has the highest potential in terms of any sweeper in the entire game. Obelost, due to its honestly broken attributes, has made itself to be a really strong Lumian when put into the right hands and in the right situation. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use and counter Obelost. The counters and checks in teammates in order to know how to use Obelost in your battles, as well as knowing the roles and sets in order to know how to team build around it. Today's video is all about how to use and counter Obelost. So in order to judge Obelost, we must look at its base stats in the context of its abilities and its move pool. First off, its range attack stat is by far its most impressive stat. A range attack stat of 135 is nothing to scoff at. This does put Obelost in the higher tiers of damage along with other wall breakers, which makes Obelost pretty good. Its energy stat of 73 and its speed tier, however, of 60, it's not really great. Its energy doesn't give Obelost a lot of turns to really try and utilize its move pool, so the best time to use Obelost is during the late to end game, and I'll explain that later. And your speed tier of 60 makes you so you are able to outspeed some walls, notably Cenomars and all of those lower speed ones. However, you do not get outsped by a lot of other walls like Stratosaur, Iguana, and of course a lot of offensive Lumians. And your melee attack stat, nothing really to write home about. However, its defensive base stats are a little bit better, however it has some noticeable weaknesses. What I mean by a little bit better, I mean a lot better. For its melee defense stat of 135 and its HP of 84, this makes Obelost to be a pretty good tank for a lot of melee attackers. An example that I can think of right at the top of my head is, as of right now, I don't think Gargolem attacks have transitioned into mixed right now, so it's going to be a pretty good matchup for that specifically. But other than that, range defense of 50 paired with your HP makes you very susceptible to any range attacking hits, especially for range ice types like Wintrix and Glaciadia. You do not want to face them. However, let's move on to your abilities, because this is where Obelost looks to be very broken. First off, its normal ability, which is going to be Whale, and I'm aware it has another one, but I'm going to be talking about the important ones. Its user strength scales of how much Lumians are fainted. This means that Obelost with the right setup can get a 40% damage increase right off the bat when everything is dead, so you can potentially pull off massive sweeps. And of course, you're not only going to have an ability that of course boosts your offensive prowess, you have a great ability in its defense, in my opinion the best defensive ability in the entire game, and this can allow you to block all forms of pivoting. Even though it is an earth and spirit type, it already blocks electric zip zaps and then of course brawler types. This is really impressive because this removes Slash and Flee from being its main weaknesses. It can also block Fade Away, which is also another one of its weaknesses, and then you can block Dissipate and Baffle, which right now, unless you have a Provoke user, you cannot block both of them. So C's can work very well on Obelost, especially when this meta is going to be revolved around offense and strong pivots like Izune, Phage-Knot, and Zulong. This is going to be a strong ability to have on any type of team. And of course, to further cement the fact that this Lumian is going to be strong and the fact that you need to use this late game, is its ability, not ability, but a move Trick Shot. This makes it so it's a priority move when an opponent uses an attacking move against you, so you can move first and hit them first. As far as I'm aware, it is a +1 priority, so using moves like Shadow Sprint or Light Speed Ray can override this Trick Shot. You have to make sure they are faster than Obelost base speed wise though. And if the opponent uses a support move, this move would fail. This means that this is basically the equivalent to King Gambit in Pokemon. Obelost can potentially do reverse sweeps onto reverse sweeps with the right setup, with the ability Whale, and of course its strong coverage. So just to go over what Obelost does bad and well against, you have to make sure that your defenses are going to be kept up. Of course, you're going to be exposed to range attackers, so making sure Obelost is with a couple of peace of minds, or you're taking out most of the opponent's range attackers is very good. At least bring it in a situation where Obelost can at least tank one hit and then start sweeping. Its energy though, you must utilize this at the end game or the late game. Its energy is not going to be a lot when it comes to surviving throughout the whole battle, and as we've learned, its range defense and its speed tier, it is very easy to revenge kill it if it's not using trick shot. So this means that you really have to know when to activate Obelost and its sweeping capabilities. Meaning it is pretty decently high skilled, but not enough, but practice can help you with that. And of course, it has a very high ceiling as it can sweep many teams because of its combination of attributes, and it deals heavy amount of damage with its range attack stat and of course whale. Its defensive utility also is pretty good, so you can potentially run defensive Obelists, specifically melee ones that also have pivot immunities, can outright wall stuff like your snack, and this can help offense a little bit better in case you're gonna try and go up against other offensive teams with pivot spam Luminous. So because of its base stats and its abilities, Obelisk can really run what it would really want to run. Obviously, it boils down to two sets, a defensive melee defensive focused one and a sweeper focused offensive set. I will be talking about both of these sets in the video, however I will be starting with the defensive one because it's slightly less standard and it does attract more interest to me specifically. The ability of choice will be Seize. Now Seize can be run on any type of Obelisk, whether that would be offensively, defensively, mainly because of the fact that making sure you are able to block all types of pivot is very strong. As I said previously, you cannot block stuff like Dissipate and Baffle normally without an ability or a Provoke, which is very strong defensive utility. You're mainly going to want to choose the ability that would help your defensive prowess as much as possible. The personality of choice is going to be robust, clever, very frail. This is because you want to outspeed some Lumians, which I will be talking about later, and clever and robust will help you be prepared for using Tamp. Obviously, Tamp is some pretty funny shenanigans, but it does have the ability to get out of hand very quickly, and that you will be utilizing for this set. Scapegoat and Tamp is a very good combo, and Body Crash is going to be able to take advantage of Tamp. Your fourth move option is a choice of coverage between Energy Break and Spectral Burst. Spectral Burst is more so of catching stuff like Urso, which is 4 times super effective, and Lumians that you want to hit neutrally like Lashent. Right now the meta is in a transition state, so it really depends on what time you're watching this video, but Energy Break will be a better option on Spectral Burst for this set, mainly because Energy Break can help you 3 KO Lashent, which is much better in my opinion. Anyways, the item of choice will be Health Amulet, Milkshake, or Mysterious Dust. Mysterious Dust is the least likely out of these items, mainly because it synergizes with Slumber. However, because of Obelost not really having the best opportunities to swap in, and it's very range deceptive range defense that you don't really want to try and take hits on, in my opinion, it's much better to go for Health Amulet and Scapegoat. It also does give you more leeway to set up more melee defense damage, which is what you want. And if you do not have either of these items able to run, you can run a Milkshake or some choice of heavy armor or heavy shield. As in terms for the set, this is going to be really simple here, and basically the 200 HP will allow you to maximize your bulk with Icicle Chaps. This will make it so Icicle Chaps will be able to 5-shot you, and 12 energy is for 1 Tamp and 5 Body Crashes. The 160 melee defense is a specific investment, and this will help you get 4-shotted by brawny 56 TP'd Wave Record Luminamis. So as long as the Luminami is not Tsunami, then you will be able to wall Luminami pretty effectively. And your 56 speed will allow you to outspeed 16 speed Lashent non-sluggish. 16 speed Lashent is, if I recall, being able to outspeed 0 speed Seer Knights and other Lashents. I in fact ran this speed myself back when I was active in the PvP community. And the 72 range defense, even though it does look like leftovers, it does get you the ability to get 3-shotted by Illuminami Maroons. Although they could run Tsunami when there is specific metas like Scorch that allow Magma Dire, Maroon is what you'd see in other settings, so running this range defense is pretty important. So for the sweeper set that's going to be utilizing Trick Shot, you're going to be wanting to run the ability Whale. Whale will allow you to get 10% more damage from every fainted party member. So this will mean that you have to bring 5 Lumions, so when Obelost is the only one standing, you get a 40% increase in damage. This will make it so you have a better chance of sweeping, and honestly, it's really self-explanatory. The personality will be robust and smart. This is also because we want to make sure we at least have some defensive utility so we can tank at least a few hits before we start sweeping. We want to make sure we can set up and make sure our trick shots do a lot of damage. This is also because we want to outspeed as much as we can without investment, so we aren't getting revenge killed by a wall, for example. That would normally beat us if we were slower. Anyways, the moveset will be Rock Slide, Trick Shot, and Peace of Mind. This is going to be the best coverage moves for your stabs. Of course, you can run Landslide, but Rock Slide will allow you to hit Lumions such as Nemesis and Amore, which would normally wall you without Rock Slide, but now you can hit air super effectively. Now that can happen. Peace of Mind will be your main setup move. Unfortunately, we do not have a Magnify, so this sucks. And your fourth move option will be Energy Break, same reason as before. Provoke, so you can potentially stop Lumens from healing and setting up on you while you set up yourself. And then Slumber, in case you need to make sure that you have another try at sweeping, because obviously you can't really try and do this all in one go. Unless you're that good. Slumber just makes sure you have a second chance. The item of choice will be the same as last time, and as for the TPs, it is a bit different but still the same concept. 200 HP is the same along with the energy. The 200 rage attack is just to maximize your damage output. Your 32 melee defense is leftovers, while 56 speed is to outspeed 16 speed Lashent. So in terms of offensive and defensive counters and checks for Obelost, there's really a small collection of Lumions that I'd really consider the best Lumions at stopping this. Of course, we're going to be talking about the hard stuff first, and that includes Holly Bunch, Luminami, Wobblisk, and Lashent. As far as I know, Lashent and Luminami, they're still going to be used quite heavily, especially in the earlier stages of this meta transition. So making sure you have answers for them is going to be your best bet. Other than this, something like Wobblisk, which isn't really used all that much, can be proved useful because it still has stuff like barbs and all of that. And Holly Bunch admittedly isn't the greatest right now because this meta is very offensive. Unless you're using this in a casual setting or in a tournament that allows Incarnate Icicle, then Holly Bunch, you wouldn't really normally pick this. Even though if we're basing it off strictly counters and checks, then Holly Bunch would be the best one for that because it resists or is immune to all of its coverage moves. Otherwise, light types is going to be the best ways to check this Lumion. Not because they just hit it super effectively, but because they are immune to Trick Shot. Even though Trick Shot will still go first, these light types will be able to absorb that and take no damage, allowing stuff like Eclipse, Jalusa, and even offensive light types like Chienta will be able to take advantage of this pretty easily. So, when you put all this together, the win conditions for Obelost must be here. You must chip mostly the opponent's team, as long as like most of the offensive checks, like the revenge killers that are resisting light, or not resisting light, but resisting or is immune to trick shot are chipped. You want to make sure that happens. Make sure you take out all the walls before you try sweeping. Light types should be chipped or dead. This makes it so trick shot is completely free. Unless Obelost is in a killing position to kill them, then you have to make sure light types are dead. And of course, you have to make sure you're full HP and or full energy. This gives you the opportunity to make as much use of your limited turns as possible, because once Obelost runs out of energy, it is pretty much regarded useless. Otherwise, some good teammates to help chip down walls is going to be Baneki, Ikazune, and Baneki. Baneki and Baneki already are pretty good picks for the meta right now. There isn't a lot being used to wall Baneki, and same goes for Baneki. Baneki is just outright unwallable, whether you want to use a Monkey Madness or Scrappy. And Ikazune here is a pretty good bridge as an offensive pivoter, because it still has both of its good pivoter moves, and it can be paired up with boots to outspeed a lot of the metagame, so it does get the offensive lead at that point. You might as well also should pair these with barbs, and some other offensive teammates is going to be Tatab, Zulong with Obelost. Obelost and Tatab have similar synergies when you're going to be talking about something like Malevolwax from my last video. Because Malevolwax is walled by similar things such as Luminami, Tatab, being a plant type, will be able to take advantage of that. Zulong is also another good pair for these two, because Zulong offensively threatens a lot of stuff, and in case Obelost can't be able to kill something and then it dies, you have Tatab or Zulong to revenge kill that. And then one more core which I will mention is going to be Mask as the pivot lead and the hazard setter with Joltooth and Jetwing's Shadowstor. Joltooth will be able to be providing so much damage with specialty gloves and ambush. Meanwhile, Jetwing is a pretty good sweeper slash cleaner for most offensive and defensive teams. Jetwing is just a very versatile sweeper, and Mamask here, although it is pretty much on fraud watch right now, I think when put in the right hands with the barbs and facade or mask swap, Mamask can be a pretty good support hazard lead and pretty good offensive bridger for a lot of teams. So I'm of the opinion that Obelost right now isn't going to be the top tier Lumion that people were making out to be when it first released. I think the hype kind of came down with it as the week passed on. It's the reason why I waited off on making this video for so long, mainly because I don't want to overhype something that might be not worth the hype at all. But honestly, I don't think this Lumion is going to be able to sweep a lot of teams. This is mainly because of its coverage. In my opinion, the main thing holding it back is the fact that Trick Shot is a Spirit type move, and it doesn't have anything to hit Light types super effectively. Even though it does have the exception for stuff like Namare, there isn't any Light type that is used popularly currently that it can hit super effectively and punish them for swapping in on a Trick Shot. This means that effectively, unless you're like +3, +2, you won't be able to 2-hit KO the light types in front of you. And because of your low speed tier and your low range attack bulk, this makes it so that you are incredibly weak to light type range attacks. I mean, just to list a few, you got stuff like Luminami and Jalusa, you got Lumions that are pretty common like Eclipse and Chienta, now that meta is going to be more offensive, and we got Lumions like Vesperatu utilizing the specialty gloves, and we even might see some more light type rising in Lumions as Lexting, Valkyrie, all of that. In my opinion, that's where it suffers the most, and its defensive typing compared with its bulk, its range defense really holds it back in my opinion. And because it doesn't have like a stronger setup move in Magnify, it will need at least 2 turns to really try and do damage. And in my opinion, it's really not worth it to try and use a sweeper that can't even sweep consistently when you can have an all-rounding offensive team that has traditional sweepers such as Chienta that isn't relying on a niche move, at least a niche move on this Lumion, to sweep teams. And that's my opinion. However, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. This is Soup signing off to remind you that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.